She was always moving from one house to another until they found out why. Why is she moving again? The question slipped from Halima's lips as she rushed into room 12 of Block B3, the women's dorm at Obafemi Idowu University in Lagos. Her expression was filled with disbelief as she held a shopping bag in one hand and pointed outside with the other. Her roommates, Ngozi, Bisi, and Tomiwa, were scattered around the room, each lost in her own relaxed Friday afternoon routine, but Halima's words instantly pierced the bubble of normalcy in the air. "What do you mean, Halima?" asked Ngozi, adjusting the scarf around her head. "Tomiwa, the janitor just said she requested a transfer to another room. Again. That makes, what, 4 times in 2 months?" Bisi, sitting in the corner with an open law book on her lap, raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "But she just moved in here last week. It's been, what, 5 days, Halima?" Halima dropped the bag on the bed and crossed her arms. "Exactly. And now she's going to Block B2, again with that weird little rolling suitcase she pulls like it weighs nothing." The mood in the room shifted. All three cast subtle glances toward Tomiwa, who was seated at the desk by the window, headphones in, seemingly oblivious to the conversation. Her gaze was fixed on the treetops swaying gently in the late afternoon breeze. Tomiwa was the kind of person who was hard to describe. Not exactly antisocial, but always a bit distant. She had a delicate beauty, refined features, and spoke rarely. But when she did, every word felt deliberately chosen. She was also extremely polite, never refused help, and never missed a commitment, which made the whole thing even more unsettling. "Guys, this is getting weird," Bisi murmured, closing her book. "It really is," Ngozi agreed. "I remember when she first got here last semester, she stayed 2 months in Block C. Then she moved to D, spent 2 weeks in the new wing of A, and now she's back in B. What's the reason for all this?" Halima sighed loudly and flopped down on the bed. Could it be a religious thing, like spiritual practices? Some people keep that really private. "Maybe, but moving rooms every week?" Bisi replied. "That goes beyond superstition." Ngozi crossed her legs and grabbed a banana from the fruit basket. "And she always moves at night, right? Have you noticed? We go to sleep, and the next morning, she's somewhere else." The three fell silent for a moment, watching Tomiwa discreetly. She had taken off her headphones and was now flipping through a small notebook filled with tiny handwriting and symbols that, from a distance, looked almost runic or foreign. Halima finally broke the silence. "I think we should just ask her," calmly. "Not in a nosy way. Just roommate curiosity." "She never answers anything directly," Bisi said. "It's always that little smile, I have my reasons, and then she disappears with that weird backpack." As if she'd heard them, Tomiwa slowly turned in her chair and looked at the three of them. Her gaze wasn't hostile, but it held a mysterious, almost playful gleam. "Are you talking about me?" The three girls exchanged guilty glances. Yeah," Ngozi began, scratching her head. "We were just trying to understand why you move around so much." Tomiwa stood gracefully, her bare feet making almost no sound on the ceramic floor. She walked to the center of the room with the calm confidence of someone who had anticipated this moment. "Some people are meant to keep moving," she said with a gentle smile, "and I'm one of them." "But why?" Halima pressed. "You don't like us? Is it the room? We can change something if it's bothering you." Tomiwa shook her head tenderly. "It's nothing to do with you, you're all wonderful. It's just that some stories are harder to tell, some presences need to stay temporary. It's safer that way." "Safer for who?" Bisi asked, suspicious. Tomiwa took a step back, still smiling, as if trying to protect them while not revealing too much. "For everyone, but don't worry. You'll understand soon. Just don't rush it." And with that cryptic remark, she grabbed her backpack and walked out, leaving a trail of stunned silence behind her. The three friends stayed frozen for a few seconds, trying to process what they'd just heard. "Okay," Ngozi finally murmured. "Now I'm set. I have to find out what that girl is hiding." "Me too," Halima agreed, crossing her arms with determination. "This isn't just curiosity anymore. Something's off about all of this." Then we watch, Bissy said, standing and walking to the window. If she's moving again, we pay attention. Something's happening on those nights. We just haven't figured out what yet. And with that, the three friends made a silent pact. Tomiwa might be surrounded by mystery, but now she was on their radar. It was only a matter of time before the truth came out, or at least, that's what they believed. She left again, said Halima, leaning against the doorframe, slightly out of breath. Block B2, room 18 this time. Bissy, who was brushing her hair in front of the small mirror taped to the wall, slowly turned to face her. Already? She barely spent a week here with us. And left like nothing happened, added Ngozi, lying on the top bunk, her face half buried between the pillow and the sheet. Didn't even say a proper goodbye. Halima closed the door behind her and walked to the center of the room. The janitor said she put in the transfer request last night. Packed everything up this morning. No one saw it. People only noticed when the bed was empty and the closet was locked. This is starting to get seriously weird, said Bissy, setting the brush down on the shelf. Moving once or twice, fine, but this is beyond reasonable. Ngozi turned to her side and let out a long sigh. Do you think it could actually be something spiritual? Like what? Halima asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. A curse? A haunting? Tomiwa never seemed scared of anything. Exactly, Bissy added. She changes rooms like she's changing clothes. Calm, unbothered, and that backpack of hers, always locked with that weird padlock. And the black box? Said Halima. That square one with the carved symbols on the side, remember? She took that too. She takes everything. Never even leaves a pair of socks behind, said Ngozi thoughtfully. The three fell silent, digesting those little details. I watched her last night, Halima said quietly. I got up at 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom. She was standing by the window, still, staring at the sky. And there was some kind of, I don't know, glow on the floor. What do you mean, glow? Bissy came closer, like a reflection, as if there was a faint bluish light projected on the floor, but nothing was turned on. Ngozi sat upright on the top bunk, now fully awake. And did she notice you saw her? Halima nodded slowly. She looked at me for a second, then smiled. Didn't say anything, just went back to packing some things into her trunk and locked it. This isn't right, said Bissy firmly. Guys, Tomiwa is hiding something. And the strangest part, Ngozi added, is that even though this all sounds bizarre, I'm not afraid of her, just suspicious, curious, like she's protecting something. Maybe she is, said Halima. Maybe even from us. The silence that followed was heavier. For the first time, the idea that Tomiwa's behavior wasn't just eccentric but intentional settled over them with real clarity. We need to know more, Bissy decided. Waiting for her to tell us won't work. If we don't ask directly, we'll never find out. But we've already tried, Ngozi reminded her, and she always dodges the question. Halima looked out the window. Night was already beginning to fall over the campus. Then we need a new strategy. Observation, Bissy suggested. No confrontation, just watch. See where she goes, when she leaves, what she does. Maybe we'll spot something that gives us a clue. How? She moves like a ghost. By the time we notice, she's already gone, Ngozi grumbled. Maybe if we split up, Halima said. One of us can pretend to study in the library, another can walk around the courtyard, and the third can try to get the floor plans of the dorms. The floor plans? Yeah, the hallways, service entrances, storage rooms. Tomiwa always moves through the back, never through the main hall. There's a pattern to it. Maybe she knows more about this campus than we think. And what if we're overreacting? Ngozi asked hesitantly. What if this is all in our heads? Then we'll find out. But if it's not, Halima crossed her arms. We need to be ready. That night, the three of them put the plan into action. Halima went to the janitor's office pretending she had lost her key card, and while chatting with the night guard, managed to glance at a simplified map of the dorm blocks pinned to the wall. Memorizing the layout wasn't easy, but she jotted down as much as she could in her notebook. Bissy volunteered to return a book to the library, and discreetly watched the corridors between blocks B and D, trying to catch any unusual movement. Ngozi stayed behind in their own block, sitting on the stairs with headphones on, pretending to be distracted but keeping an eye on the entrance to Tomiwa's new room. None of them, however, saw Tomiwa enter or leave. When they met later in the now noticeably colder and emptier room, the frustration was obvious. "It's like she just disappears," said Halima. "Or like she's in two places at once," Bisi murmured. "This isn't normal," Ngozi concluded. The next morning, before the first alarm even went off, Halima sat up abruptly in bed. "Look at this." She pointed to the digital bulletin board for the dorm, where a new notice from the janitor's office was displayed. Tomiwa Adebayo, confirmed transfer to room 4, block D, effective immediately. "She moved again?" Bisi exclaimed. "She was still in B2 last night," said Ngozi, incredulous. Halima slowly put down her phone, looking at her friends with a serious expression. "We need to stop waiting for something to reveal the truth. We have to go to it." "How?" Bisi asked. "Tonight we go to her new room. No warning, no knocking. We find out what she's hiding, whatever it is." The other two nodded, reluctantly, but with resolve. Curiosity had turned into necessity. They had crossed the point of no return. Now they didn't just want to know, they needed to know. "Are we going now?" whispered Halima, her eyes fixed on the phone screen reading 11:56 p.m. "Yeah," Bisi replied, already wearing her sneakers and holding up her phone flashlight, dimmed with a scarf to soften the glow. Ngozi quietly climbed down from the top bunk, her heart pounding so loudly she swore the others could hear it. They had waited for the campus to fall silent, for the footsteps in the halls to fade, for the windows to go dark. And now, finally, the moment had come. Tomiwa had moved the day before to room 4 in Block D, an older, almost abandoned wing of the university where few students chose to stay. Most said the rooms were damp, with bad wiring and doors that creaked like a horror movie. But somehow, that's exactly where Tomiwa had decided to go. The three slipped out of room 12 in complete silence, guided only by the muted light from Bisi's phone. The stairwell felt longer that night. Every step echoed like a threat. As they crossed the courtyard toward Block D, the air grew heavier, almost thick. A cold wind rustled through the trees, and the sound of leaves brushing together created an unsettling soundtrack. When they reached the building, Halima tried the doorknob. It was unlocked. "She left it open," Ngozi murmured. "Or someone else went in before us," Halima replied, tense. The hallway inside Block D was narrow, the walls yellowed with age and lined with a row of silent doors. Room 4 was the second on the left. It stood slightly ajar, a faint light slipping through the crack. The three girls exchanged glances. Bisi gave a small nod. Halima stepped forward and pressed her ear to the wooden door. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, not even a rustle. Just a heavy silence, as if the room were suspended in time. With the caution of someone disarming a trap, Halima gently pushed the door open. What they saw made all three of them stop breathing. Tomiwa was seated on the floor, legs crossed over a thin rug embroidered with strange, unknown symbols. The light came from an old lamp in the corner, casting soft shadows across the walls. And there, resting on the girl's lap, was her head. Yes, her head, detached from her body. Her eyes were closed, her hair falling over her lap, while her hands, still attached to the seated torso, skillfully braided the strands, creating an intricate and delicate hairstyle. Her fingers moved as if guided by some ancient instinct. The girls couldn't move. None of them could even blink. The scene in front of them defied everything they knew about the world, about the human body, about logic. "Oh my God," Bisi whispered, barely audible. Tomiwa, as if she had heard, slowly opened her eyes, still with her head resting on her lap. "You came," she said, and the voice didn't come from the separated mouth but from the body, as if there were an invisible connection between the parts, a thread no human sense could comprehend. The head floated upward slowly, as if lifted by a gentle breeze, and returned to Tomiwa's neck. The joining was seamless. No blood, no marks. as if it had never been apart. She stood up calmly, straightening her blouse and smoothing her skirt. Her eyes were serene, but the silence between them felt fragile, ready to shatter. "This," Halima started, but her voice broke. "I know how it looks," Tomiwa replied firmly, "and it's exactly that. It's not a trick, not a hallucination, not stage magic." The three remained frozen, caught between panic and the paralysis of the impossible. "How?" Ngozi tried to speak, but didn't even know where to begin. Tomiwa sighed, walking slowly to the window and pulling the curtain aside. The moon cast light over the campus outside, peaceful, quiet, almost ironic considering what had just taken place. "I was born like this. I don't really know how to explain it. Ever since I was a child, I knew I could separate. At first it was terrifying. Then I learned control and finally and purpose." "That's impossible," BC said, in a voice that sounded more like an apology to the universe than an accusation. "But it happened," Tomiwa replied, "and you saw it." Halima took a deep breath and stepped forward, the first movement since she had opened the door. Why hide it? Why keep moving? Tomiwa closed her eyes for a moment. "Because it's dangerous. Not for me, but because of who's looking for me. There are people, groups who know what I can do, and if they find out where I am, they'll come. They'll use it." "Use what?" Ngozi asked, her voice trembling. "Your head?" Tomiwa smiled for the first time that night. "Not exactly. What I can do with it. The separation is just the surface." The three of them exchanged glances. Each of their minds was racing with questions, but none seemed appropriate or capable of grasping what was being revealed. "So, moving from room to room was your way of throwing them off?" Bissy asked. "Yes, staying in motion, always on the edge, never too close, never staying long enough to be found." "And now?" Halima asked. "Now that we know?" Tomiwa looked at them. Her face was calm, but there was a deep sadness in her eyes, a weariness none of them had noticed before. "Now you know. And that changes everything." Silence fell over the room again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one had weight, history, danger. "From now on," Tomiwa said quietly, "you have to decide whether you stay with me or turn around and forget what you saw." "Forget?" Ngozi let out a disbelieving laugh. "You really think it's possible to forget something like this?" "I just wanted a normal life," Tomiwa continued, "to study, have friends. But you can't be normal when you carry a secret like this." "We're not leaving," Halima said. "It might sound crazy, but we saw and we're staying." "That's right," Bissy added. "I don't know what any of this means, but we're not letting you face it alone." Tomiwa looked at each of them. A light flickered in her eyes, as if a part of her, something very old and very lonely, had just been lifted. "Thank you," she whispered. "But now that you know, you need to be ready. Because if they've stayed away until now, that's going to change." Her words hung in the air, ominous, and in that moment they all understood. Life on campus would never be the same again. "Do you really want to know?" Tomiwa asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. She was seated on the floor, legs crossed, like a priestess about to reveal the secrets of an ancient temple. The warm yellow light from the lamp cast shadows across her face, making her eyes look deeper, heavier. Halima, Bisi, and Ngozi glanced at one another. No one answered right away. It was as if they were still searching inside themselves for permission to dive into a world they already knew was bigger and darker than they were prepared to face. "Yes," Halima finally said firmly. "We do." Tomiwa closed her eyes for a moment. She took a deep breath, the kind of breath taken by someone who's carried a burden for far too long. "What you saw last night isn't even the beginning," she began, her tone calm and steady. "I can separate my head from my body. That alone is terrifying. But the truth is this gift or curse goes far beyond that." She looked directly at Bisi, then at Ngozi, and finally at Halima. "When my head is detached, I don't remain only in the physical world. I cross over. I walk through layers of reality you can't even imagine exist. These are spaces between worlds, intersections, subtle gateways, and when I'm in those spaces, I can observe things that don't belong to our dimension." The girls listened in silence, taking in every word like a prophecy. "It all started when I was 6 years old," Tomiwa continued, her voice growing more intimate. "It was late afternoon in Ibadan, my hometown. I remember playing in the backyard when my head simply fell off. No pain, no warning, as if it had set itself free. 'Oh my God,' Ngozi whispered, horrified. My mother showed up seconds later. She didn't scream, didn't panic. She just picked up my head carefully, placed it back and held me in her arms. She cried softly, but she didn't look surprised. That night, she told me it had happened before, to other women in our bloodline. Most of them hid it. Some went mad, others vanished. The room fell completely silent. The soft sound of light rain tapping on the window was the only thing breaking the suffocating tension. Over the years, I learned control, how to separate consciously, how to understand the boundaries. But the more I explored, the more I realized it wasn't just about me. That space between worlds is inhabited by entities, beings that see me as a bridge, a key. "A key?" Bissy asked, frowning. "Yes, I'm a doorway, or rather, I can open doors. Doors to places that were meant to stay shut." She rose gently and walked toward the wall, where there was a small altar, something none of them had noticed before. There were melted candles, a bundle of dried leaves, and a small clay sculpture shaped like a woman's head. There are people who want to use that, who want to force those doors open. Powerful people, dangerous people. They hunt people like me, people with gifts, and they'll do anything to turn us into tools. "And that's why you keep moving?" Halima asked, finally understanding. Tomiwa nodded. "Switching dorms, blocks, beds, it protects me. Constant movement breaks the trail. They need consistency to find you. They hunt by energy, frequency. When you stay in one place too long, you vibrate and they can feel it." "Who are they exactly?" Ngozi asked, her voice tense. Tomiwa hesitated. Her eyes lost focus, as if recalling something she'd rather keep buried. "They're called the Watchers of the Veil. They're not a typical cult. You won't find them on Google. They have no headquarters, no faces. They're ancient. They work through mediators, human intermediaries, people who believe opening the doors will bring power, knowledge, immortality. And have you ever come face to face with one of them?" Bissy asked, glancing toward the door, as if expecting someone to knock at any moment. "Once," Tomiwa said, barely audible, "in Abuja. I was at a boarding school when a woman showed up, dressed normally, but her eyes were hollow, like something else was inside her. She knew. She said my name, told me to open the way. I ran that same night. That's when I learned never to stay in one place for too long." Halima stepped closer to her friend. "Why didn't you tell us before? Why hide this from us?" "Because I liked you." Tomiwa's answer came quickly, sincere and full of sadness. "And I thought that if you knew you'd pull away, be afraid I'd become just another bizarre burden in your lives." "Tomiwa," Ngozi began, moved. "I didn't want to lose you. But more than that, I didn't want you to be in danger. Just by being here with me, now that you know, you're already at risk." "And now?" Halima asked. "Now that we've seen all this, now that we know, what happens next?" Tomiwa looked around, as if seeing beyond the walls, beyond time. "Now, they'll sense it. They always know when someone finds out, when the secret starts to unravel. I can feel they're getting close again. Tonight, maybe tomorrow, but it won't be long." "Then we need to get ready," Bissy said. "We're not running." "You don't understand," Tomiwa replied urgently. "This isn't a test of friendship. This is war, and you have no idea what you're up against." "Then teach us," Halima said, locking eyes with her. "If we're going to be in danger, let it be with awareness, head held high. Together." Tomiwa looked at the three of them, her breath quickening. For the first time, the weight of not being alone seemed to hit her. A single tear slid silently down her cheek. "You're brave. Braver than I expected." We're not brave. We're scared. But fear isn't the same as backing down, Ngozi said with a half smile. A sudden noise outside made them all turn at once, a sharp crack, like splintering wood. Then slow, heavy footsteps. Tomiwa didn't move. But her expression changed instantly, eyes wide, body tense. "It's too soon," she murmured. "They're never this fast." "Who?" Halima asked, heart racing. Tomiwa slowly turned to them. "Don't open the door, no matter what happens." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then came the sound of heavy breathing in the hallway, and all of them understood, in that instant, what had once been mystery was now a threat. The war had begun. "Tomiwa," Bissy whispered urgently. "Who's out there?" Tomiwa kept her eyes fixed on the bedroom door, where shadows danced beneath the beam of light from the lamp. Her gaze didn't waver. Her breathing was short, restrained. On the other side, the footsteps had stopped. "No one's answering," Halima murmured, stepping back toward her friends. "This isn't right." "It's her," Tomiwa finally said. "I recognize that silence. That's how she announces her presence." "Her who?" Ngozi stepped forward, voice steady despite her trembling hands. "Who's there?" Tomiwa hesitated, swallowed hard, then said, "Ireti." The three friends exchanged confused looks. The name meant nothing to them. "She's a messenger of the Watchers of the Veil," Tomiwa explained. "But don't be fooled. She has power of her own. She believes I belong to her, that my gift is a weapon waiting to be commanded." A second later, without warning, the doorknob turned. The girls immediately backed away. Halima reached for something, anything to defend herself. A bottle, a chair. But Tomiwa raised her hand. "Don't. If she wanted to force her way in, she already would have." The door opened slowly, revealing a tall, slender figure, her skin dark like polished ebony. She wore a long grey cloak embroidered with geometric patterns along the sleeves. There was a kind of shadowed nobility about her. Her eyes, deep, fixed, seemed to see far beyond what was visible. Her braided hair fell to her waist, swaying slightly with the night breeze drifting in through the half-open door. "I knew I'd find you here, Tomiwa," the woman said in a velvety voice, calm but far from comforting. "You weren't invited," Tomiwa replied coldly. Ireti smiled faintly and entered without permission. The room seemed to shrink in her presence. The girls stood side by side, forming a small wall between Tomiwa and the visitor. "And yet, here I am," said Ireti, "because you opened the veil, and now others can feel it. Others have already arrived." "I didn't open anything," Tomiwa shot back. "They're the ones forcing me to be something I don't want to be, and you know that." "Oh, child," Ireti sighed, her gaze sliding over the three girls. "You've always been afraid of your reflection. But the problem is, it's no longer just about you." She stepped forward, and Halima raised her arm in a defensive gesture. "Don't come any closer." Ireti didn't retreat. She simply watched her with interest. "You get attached easily, Tomiwa. That will be your downfall." "They're my friends," Tomiwa retorted, "and you won't touch a single one of them." "I don't need to touch them," Ireti said. "I only want them to understand what's at stake. Your head isn't an anatomical oddity. It's a key, an anchor, a fragment of the world between worlds. And there are people, far more than you realize, willing to do anything to control it." "We've heard about the Watchers of the Veil," said Ngozi, her voice trembling, "but we're not afraid." "Oh, you will be," Ireti replied, her eyes lighting up with satisfaction, "because courage doesn't stop the unknown from devouring you. It only delays it." "Why are you here now?" Bissy asked. "Why not show up only when you want to use Tomiwa?" Ireti's eyes scanned the wall as if searching for invisible cracks. "Because she disrupted the flow. She trusted you. She revealed herself. The connection opened wider than it should have, and now others are coming. I tried to stop it, I tried to warn her, but now it's too late." She turned back to Tomiwa, her eyes filled with a moist, shadowy gleam. "You think you can protect your friends? That you can hide behind the word friendship? What's coming doesn't recognize affection, only energy." "Then say what you came to say," Tomiwa said, voice firm. "I came to tell you to prepare," Ireti answered. Because a rupture is coming, and they, the true ones, want to cross over. You are the door, and someone is about to force it open. Silence fell again, thick as fog. Ireti walked to the door. The night isn't over, she said before stepping out, and neither are you. The door closed on its own without a touch. A cold wind swept through the room, snuffing out one of the candles on the small altar. Tomiwa collapsed onto the bed, sweaty, shaking. She's right, she murmured. Something is coming, something big. What did she mean by someone's going to force it open? Halima asked, stepping closer. There are other sensitives, others with smaller gifts, but together they can force a connection. They can break the resistance I've built. If that happens, the veil tears. And what's on the other side? Tomiwa didn't finish. What can we do? Ngozi asked, kneeling beside her. The first thing, Tomiwa said, is to stay close, no separating. The second is to not let them take me. Take you where? To the blind entry, she said, a place between planes, a limbo where my energy can be forced into eternal flux. If they trap me there, the door never closes again. You're not going alone, Bissi said. We're in this now, and we're going to the end. This isn't a game, Tomiwa warned, locking eyes with each of them. It could cost you your sanity, or worse. Then teach us how to fight, Halima replied. Tomiwa gave a tired but touched smile. You don't know how much that means to me. Outside, thunder split the sky. The rain grew heavier, and the night pressed on, heavy and alive, like the whole world was holding its breath. The rupture was near, and now there was no turning back. The storm hit hard the following night. Lightning tore through the sky over Lagos like cracks in a fabric on the verge of splitting apart. In room 4 of Block D, the sound of the rain felt distant, muted by a thick silence that filled the space like invisible smoke. The 4 girls sat together, gathered in a circle around the small improvised altar made of candles, dried leaves, and white stones that Tomiwa had arranged with precision. Are you absolutely sure about this? She asked, her voice low but steady. If you stay, there's no turning back. We already told you, Tomiwa, Halima replied. That decision was made the moment you let us see who you really are. Bissi nodded in agreement, adjusting a beaded necklace that Tomiwa had given each of them. These beads are old, Tomiwa explained, from the north of the country. They represent bond, protection, and access. If one of them breaks, it means the energy's been violated. Pay attention to them. Ngozi held hers like it was too fragile for the world. And if it breaks, what happens to us? It's not the bracelet that breaks. It's what it represents, Tomiwa answered. You lose the connection to me, and if that happens, you'd better run. A knock at the door cut through the silence. 3 knocks, precise. The 4 girls looked at one another. Now? Bissi whispered. It's too soon, Tomiwa murmured, already on her feet. Before she could reach the door, a voice called from the other side. Tomiwa! It was a woman's voice, cold, precise. Tomiwa, can you hear me? Tomiwa went pale. It's Amina. Who? Halima frowned. Amina, Tomiwa repeated, eyes still locked on the door. One of the first I met when I discovered I wasn't the only one. She disappeared years ago. I thought she was dead. Should we open it? Ngozi asked. No, Tomiwa replied, but it was already too late. The doorknob turned on its own. The door opened slowly, revealing a tall figure with sharp features and skin smooth as ancient ivory. Her eyes were dark and direct. Her black hair fell in heavy waves over her shoulders. Amina walked in as if she already knew the space, as if she had been there before in another time. You took too long to understand, she said, staring directly at Tomiwa. What are you doing here? Tomiwa's voice wavered between anger and fear. What I've always done, Amina replied. Protect you from yourself. The girls stood up. The air crackled. You're with them? Bissi asked, stepping forward. With the Watchers? Amina didn't respond right away. She looked around, taking in the candles, the symbols, the wide-eyed girls. I'm with the truth, she finally said, and that's more dangerous than any side. Tomiwa crossed her arms. Say it, now. They're coming, Amina said. Not the messengers, the real ones. The ones who've been asleep since before the world understood itself. The key has weakened, the rupture has formed, and you are the most exposed link. So you came to warn me? Tomiwa asked, disbelief in her voice. I came to give you a choice, Amina replied. Go with them now, willingly, and maybe prevent the worst, or resist, and cause a collapse no one will be able to contain. That's blackmail, Halima snapped. You're threatening her. Amina turned to Halima with a look that seemed to cut across centuries. You think this is a story about choices, that there's a right and wrong. Everything Tomiwa is, was never hers. She's only a carrier, like someone carries a mirror. But now that mirror reflects something that wants out. And if I say no? Tomiwa stepped forward. What happens if I fight? The gate will open, Amina said, her voice cracking slightly. And those on the other side will come through. Then let them come, Tomiwa whispered. But I won't be used. I won't surrender. Amina stared at her for long seconds. Her face hardened. So be it, she said, then vanished before their eyes. A sharp crack filled the air. The scent of ozone swept through the room, and the candles extinguished all at once. The room plunged into darkness. What was that? Ngozi asked, clutching Bissi's hand. The rupture has begun, Tomiwa replied. Their presence is close. Suddenly, the floor trembled slightly. A deep sound like buried thunder echoed through the halls of the block. Tomiwa ran to the window. They're coming. Who exactly? Halima asked, her voice unsteady. The ones without names, Tomiwa answered. And if they get to me before I'm ready, then what do we do? Bissi asked. Tell us. Tomiwa turned to them, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and power. We prepare the line of defense, we light the marks, we seal the folds, and we stay together. Our only chance is to not let them separate me. And if they're stronger? Ngozi asked. They are, but we have something they don't understand, Tomiwa replied. Bond. She took a ceremonial knife from the altar, made a thin cut across her palm and held it out to Halima. Blood union now! Without hesitation, Halima cut her own hand, then Bissi, then Ngozi. One by one, they joined hands in a circle. Blood dripped over the beads of their necklaces. A soft glow rose from the center. May the bond protect us, Tomiwa said. May no shadow cross where the light of connection burns stronger. Outside, a new sound filled the air, something between a roar and a chant. The rupture was no longer a threat. It was already here, and the war was about to begin. The first sound wasn't a crash or a scream, it was a whisper so thin, so subtle, it seemed to slip through the cracks in the wood, through the folds of the air, seeping like mist between the walls of room 4. Did you hear that? Bissi asked, her voice cracked with tension. I did, Halima answered, tightening her grip on Tomiwa's hand. Tomiwa didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on the center of the circle of joined hands, where the glow of the beads, now streaked with shared blood, began to spin in a spiral. A subtle vortex of energy, first no larger than a candle flame, then pulsing, growing, opening fissures in the very atmosphere of the room. He's here, Tomiwa murmured. The veil is tearing. Suddenly, the floor shook, not like a normal tremor, but as if something was pushing up from beneath, trying to rise from the building's foundation. The lights flickered. The candles, freshly relit, flared into small blue flames. And then the portal opened. At the center of the room, the air began to shimmer in rings, like heat rising from asphalt. But instead of fading, the shimmer condensed into light, a blinding spiral spinning in emptiness, like a glowing wound in the skin of reality. This is what they wanted, Tomiwa said, her voice thick with emotion. The fracture, the entry point. Can we close it? Ngozi shouted, trying to stay upright as objects around the room began to float. No, Tomiwa replied. You can't close something that was forced open. I can only cross through. What? Bissi nearly let go of her hand. No, you're not going in there. Tomiwa rose slowly as if being pulled, guided by a force greater than herself. Her hair drifted in movements that didn't match the wind. Her eyes, dark as wet coal, locked onto the vortex. They want me to go. If I don't, they'll pull everything. You, the building, the university. Everything will be torn apart with the veil. Halima grabbed her by the shoulders. You don't have to go alone. I do, Tomiwa said, because only I can contain it from the inside. And how will you come back? Ngozi asked, tears brimming in her eyes. Tomiwa hesitated for a second. I don't know. Then don't go, Bisi shouted, her voice breaking. We'll find another way. We'll fight. I've been fighting, she said, a bitter smile on her lips, since the day I was born. She touched each of their foreheads, one by one, in a quick, ritualistic gesture. At every touch, a small light blinked on their bracelets. This will hide you from the trail. They won't sense your bond to me once I cross. The vortex roared, like thunder being swallowed inward. The pull intensified. Papers flew, chairs skidded, the floor began to crack. It's at the edge, Tomiwa murmured. I have to go now. Tomiwa, no, Halima said, locking eyes with her. You promised. You said no more hiding, that we'd face this together. Tomiwa smiled, and for the first time that night, her eyes shone with something beyond fear. And that's exactly why I'm going, because now I know I'm not alone. She took a step toward the vortex, then another. The light began to wrap around her like liquid silk, drawing her in, absorbing her shape. I'll seal the path from the other side, she said, her voice already fading. Don't let them open another. With one last look at her three friends, Tomiwa raised her hand, and then stepped into the portal. The room exploded in light. The sound was absolute, as if the entire universe screamed at once, and then silence. The vortex vanished. The cracks in the floor ceased. The energy in the air dissolved like fog at sunrise. Tomiwa was gone. The three stood frozen for a long moment. Ngozi collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Halima stared at the center of the now empty room, as if waiting for her friend to return at any second. Bisi, pale, tried to keep her breathing steady. She's gone, Halima said at last. She really went in. She'll come back, right? Ngozi murmured. She said she didn't know how, but she'll find a way, won't she? Bisi didn't answer. We can't just stay here, Halima said, forcing herself to her feet. We have to find a way to reach her. But how? Ngozi cried. We don't even know where she went. Amina, Bisi said, her eyes narrowing. She knew. She knows the way. You think she'll help us? She has to. Because now this isn't just about Tomiwa anymore. It's about everything they're trying to bring through that portal. The three of them embraced in the center of the room, silent, still trembling. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky still carried heavy clouds, but a sliver of moonlight lit the leaves in the courtyard. On the other side of the veil, somewhere beyond time, beyond space, Tomiwa walked alone. The voices she heard there didn't come from mouths. They were ancient thoughts, forgotten wills. But she didn't retreat, because now she had a reason, a purpose, and above all, she had someone to come back for. The first week after Tomiwa's disappearance passed in a blur. Classes continued. The horns at the gates of Obafemi Idowu University still blared during peak hours. Students laughed in the hallways, crowded the cafeteria, and debated over exams. But for Halima, Ngozi, and Bisi, the world had stopped. Tomiwa's bed remained empty, untouched. The candles by the altar had been cleared away, but the space still seemed to hold the warmth of a presence no longer there. Every time I look at that corner, my chest tightens, Bisi whispered one night, sitting on the floor of the room. It feels like she's still here, but trapped in some invisible fold. Ngozi wiped her eyes, trying to hold back tears. I keep dreaming about her, but in the dreams, she never speaks. She just looks at me, like she wants to say something but can't. Halima stood by the window in silence. Her fingers slowly turned the beads of the bracelet Tomiwa had given them. None had broken, but all had lost their glow. If the bond still exists, she said firmly, then she's alive. The girls exchanged glances. Even without saying it out loud, they all felt the same. Tomiwa's absence wasn't death. It was a waiting, but waiting needed action. On the third day, they went to the university's central library. BC scoured the Yoruba mythology sections, Ifa spiritual transitions. Ngozi searched the secret archives of the anthropology research group and found fragmented references to veil bearers, beings capable of opening passages to hidden realities. Halima, however, found what she was looking for in the most unlikely place, the custodian of Block D. "You're friends of the quiet girl, aren't you?" he asked, holding an old broom with a melancholic air. "The one who kept moving rooms." "Tomiwa," Halima said with hope. "Did you know something?" The man looked around before answering. "She used to ask about the basement, the old part of campus, the foundation beneath the main building." "Basement? There's a sealed-off underground wing, closed since the 70s. They say it was used for rituals or something. She went there, twice that I know of. After that, she vanished." The girls looked at one another. "Amina," Bissy whispered. It didn't take long to find her. Amina was still around campus, as if waiting for the inevitable. When they approached her, she wasn't surprised. "I knew you'd come." "You knew she'd go into that portal?" Ngozi accused, furious. "And you did nothing." Amina didn't respond. She simply lowered her head as if carrying old guilt. "Why hasn't she come back?" Halima asked. "Where is she?" "She's in a between place," Amina said. "A space with no time, no language. But she's holding on. You still feel the bond because she still remembers you." "Then take us to her." "You wouldn't survive it," Amina said sharply. "That place consumes." "We don't care," Bissy said. "We'd rather be consumed than forget her." Amina looked at each of them, then nodded slowly. "Tomorrow night, the old campus entrance. Bring nothing but what's on your body." That night fell heavy. The entrance to the sealed wing was hidden behind the storage room of the administrative block. A rust-covered iron hatch buried beneath leaves. Below, darkness, dampness, and silence. Amina led with a lantern in hand. Halima, Bisi, and Ngozi followed close behind, hands clasped like a cord of faith. At the end of the stone corridor there was a mirror, but not an ordinary one. Its surface was liquid, like mercury at rest. "This is the fold," Amina explained. "It's not a portal, it's a reflection. You must want to enter, and remember who you are. If you forget, you don't come back." "We go together," Halima said. The three stepped forward. The surface shimmered. The world spun. And then, nothing. The place felt like a dream. The floor was made of black glass. The sky, a blend of aurora and dense shadow. Shapes moved in the distance, wandering aimlessly. Whispers. And then they saw her. Tomiwa sat at the center of a spiral of grey lights. Her eyes were closed, her body tense. Around her, shadows reached toward her floating head, motionless in the air like a sentinel. "Tomiwa!" Ngozi cried. She opened her eyes. For the first time in days, they saw light, and with it came tears. The girls ran to her. The moment they touched, a burst of light erupted. The spiral shattered. The shadows scattered in a howl of anguish. The space trembled. The fold was closing. "Hold tight!" Bissy shouted. "Now!" All four were pulled back. The light collapsed, and then air, ground. They were back in the basement, lying down, soaked with sweat, hearts racing, but alive, together. Tomiwa trembled. "I thought I'd never see you again." Halima hugged her tight. "And we thought we couldn't take one more day without you." Outside, the wind was soft. The rupture had been sealed, for now, but within them something new had awakened, a strength that didn't come from mystical gifts or strange powers. It came from the bond, and more than ever, they knew. Together, they could face any veil. That night, as the four of them walked in silence across the quiet campus, each still feeling the warmth of reunion beating in their chests, Tomiwa suddenly stopped. She looked at the sky. The stars weren't twinkling. Not at all, not even flickering. They were still completely frozen. "Wait," she murmured. Halima turned, concerned. "What is it now?" Tomiwa frowned, narrowing her eyes at the horizon. "Do you feel that?" Bisi took a breath. Ngozi clutched her bracelet. Then, A sharp sound sliced through the air. It didn't come from above or below, it came from within, a vibration that echoed in their bones. The campus lights flickered 3 times, and across the courtyard, a hooded figure appeared, standing, watching, alone, but not empty. Tomiwa stepped forward, heart pounding. "That is not from here." The figure slowly raised a hand and pointed at her. All 4 girls' bracelets glowed red. A voice whispered in their minds, hoarse, dry, impossible to trace. The door was only the first. What sleeps has awakened. The end of peace and the beginning of something older, deeper, darker. They were no longer running from the unknown. Now the unknown was coming for them.